episodes. Will you recommend the Job Guide 360 interview guide to prospective job seekers?
Sure, I will. The guide is detailed and very comprehensive.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are analyzing one of the most high-pressure roles in modern industry, the Construction Safety Manager, the CSM.
Yeah, it's a big word.
This role isn't just about handing out hard hats. It's really about developing policies, executing these, rigorous inspections, and leading through immediate crises, and all in environments where the stakes are literally life and death.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were looking to quickly gain the essential toolkit, let's say, of a truly successful CSM, you are definitely in the right place. Our mission today is to kind of shortcut that learning curve.
Exactly. We've basically taken the consensus responses from highly experienced CSMs, pulled from key industry Q&A, the questions that really define the job day to day.
Yeah.
We're distilling what they prioritize, how they structure their crisis response, and maybe some of those often overlooked leadership skills required to keep these multi-million-dollar projects on track and, crucially, safe.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start where every CSM starts, right? The regulatory framework. What sort of shocked us in the sources wasn't that they need to know the rules, but the sheer dynamic percentage of their time dedicated purely to compliance.
Right. It's huge.
They must be intimately familiar with OSHA. That's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration regulations, making sure every project, every single subcontractor meets the letter of the law.
And it's not static knowledge either. It's a constant initiative.
Yeah.
The experts we looked at mentioned continuous learning, like attending seminars and workshops just to keep pace with changes.
Wow.
And that high level of regulatory compliance, it translates directly into the top 3 proactive procedures they seem to implement daily.
Okay, so what are those non-negotiables, those procedures?
Well, first, scheduled safety inspections and audits, conducted regularly across the entire project duration, not just, a kickoff thing.
Right, ongoing.
Second, providing adequate and comprehensive training. And this really means everyone new hires and veteran staff because, complacency kills. That came through loud and clear.
Yeah, you can see that.
And third, implementing strict, really zero-tolerance policies regarding the use of personal protective equipment, or PPE.
Your hard hats, goggles, specialized gloves, that kind of thing.
Precisely.
It's easy to say training is continuous, but, time is money on a construction site. Do the sources indicate that CSMs actually have the power to, stop work for proper training? Or is it usually just squeezed in before the morning shift starts?
Yeah, that's the constant tension of the job, isn't it? But the best CSMs, the ones who are really effective, don't just demand compliance. They create a whole systemic program around it.
Ah, okay.
So training means developing comprehensive workshops, yes, but it's also reinforced daily using materials, manuals, handouts, posters that act as these constant reminders.
Little nudges.
Exactly. The consensus is clear. You negotiate the time you need because the alternative, an accident, costs exponentially more. The CSM has to be seen as both the chief educator and the chief enforcer pretty much simultaneously.
Okay, we've discussed the proactive side, the compliance, but the CSM is often defined by their response when compliance actually fails. This takes us into the leadership flashpoints. So what happens when a worker, maybe a highly skilled one, just refuses to follow a critical safety protocol?
This is a huge test of leadership, and it's really where the CSM's crucial soft skills come into play. The sources are pretty clear on this.
How so?
The first step, always, must be empathy. They stress approaching the worker to figure out why the refusal happened. Is the equipment uncomfortable? Does the procedure seem impractical for the task at hand? You have to try and build trust first by listening.
But on a high-risk site, with tight deadlines, how long do you actually afford that empathy before enforcement has to kick in?
Well, you explain the safety rationale, the real-world risk involved, clearly. If the worker still refuses, knowing the consequences, then you pivot to disciplinary action.
Okay.
Which could be a formal warning or even suspension, depending on how severe the protocol breach is. But the absolute critical step, the thing they all mention, is that you must meticulously document that entire interaction.
Every step.
Everything. The refusal, the explanation you gave, the disciplinary action taken, it's all for future reference and, frankly, legal protection.
That's a powerful point. Documentation is the CSM's armor, you could say, but it's also a burden, right? Does the expert consensus suggest managers ever struggle to maintain those documentation standards when the site is moving really fast?
Oh, they absolutely do, which is precisely why the successful ones have systems in place to manage it. Templates, maybe software, whatever works.
Gotcha.
And that documentation is just essential because often the toughest conflicts they face aren't just individual refusals, but recognizing a pattern of risk. Like you suddenly see 3 similar injuries pop up in 6 weeks.
Okay, that's a red flag.
A huge red flag. Immediate documented action is required there.
So what does that immediate action plan look like when you spot a pattern like that?
First, you initiate a root cause investigation. You have to figure out why it's happening. Is it unsafe working conditions, like is the equipment faulty, or is it unsafe practices? Are workers maybe skipping a crucial step to save time?
Finding the why.
Exactly. Once the root cause is isolated, you immediately implement a corrective safety plan. That could mean new training, maybe different equipment, or even a change in the process itself.
And then you tell everyone.
Communication is absolutely essential. You have to make sure everyone understands why the change is happening, and then you monitor the site aggressively to make sure the fix is working.
Okay, now let's analyze the real flashpoint moment, the immediate injury incident. When adrenaline is high, a serious accident has just occurred. The sources seem to give a very clear, structured priority list for the CSM.
Yes, they do. It's quite consistent. We can almost simplify the immediate response into a critical sequence. Maybe think of it as treat, contain, analyze, prevent.
Okay, break that down.
First, treat. Ensure immediate medical attention for the injured person. That's paramount.
Obviously.
Second, contain. Assess the situation and take immediate steps to prevent any further injuries. Lock down the scene, secure any hazards still present.
Stop the bleeding, metaphorically speaking, for the site.
Right. Third, analyze. Conduct a thorough investigation to identify the hazards and risks that led to the event. This is your root cause analysis part.
Find out what went wrong.
Fourth, prevent. Develop a comprehensive action plan, new training, new protocols, physical changes to the work environment, whatever it takes, designed specifically to stop it from happening again.
Okay.
And finally, kind of underpinning all of it, document all findings and actions taken. You need that record to track progress and prove compliance later.
We list these steps, almost clinically.
Yeah.
Treat, contain, analyze, prevent. But let's take a breath here. The sources really stress that managing that immediate adrenaline rush, staying calm enough to actually execute step 2, assess the scene properly, that's arguably the hardest soft skill of the entire job.
Absolutely. It's immense pressure. The CSM essentially shifts from being an educator to an emergency first responder in like milliseconds.
A tough switch.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is how the really successful safety managers link this reactive crisis response directly back to strategic business decisions and even financial management.
How so?
Well, they aren't just enforcing rules in a vacuum. They are actively defining where the company invests its safety resources. Becomes strategic.
Okay, so playing that out, if a CSM was forced somehow to choose one single physical risk area to focus all their resources and attention on, what does the expert consensus say is the absolute highest priority?
The consensus on this was overwhelming, actually.
Fall protection.
Fall protection. Okay. Yeah, this is the definitive insight from the sources we looked at. Falls are constantly cited as the leading cause of death in the construction industry.
Wow, the leading cause.
The leading cause. And the experts know they are largely preventable with proper planning, the right equipment, and systems that meet OSHA standards. So that focus immediately tells you exactly where the highest preventable risk lies on pretty much any construction site.
That makes a lot of sense. And when we talk about investment, quality is crucial. I can imagine in budget meetings, items like safety glasses or specialized respirators, they might feel like the first thing to get downgraded to save cash. Why do successful CSMs fight so hard for investment in quality person protected equipment?
It's a really good question. Because investing in quality PPE does 2 key things. First, obviously it reduces the risk of injury and illness. That's the primary goal. But maybe more subtly, it fosters an atmosphere of respect and responsibility among the employees, providing high-quality gear signals to the worker that the company genuinely values their well-being, not just, ticking a box to meet the lowest possible cost threshold.
It shows they care.
Exactly. And that sense of care, that feeling of being valued, ultimately leads to increased productivity and fewer accidents down the line. So it's actually a return on investment, not just a sunk cost.
So the CSM needs financial acumen too then. How do they successfully manage the safety budget without compromising on these crucial investments like Quality PPE.
Financial skill is pretty much mandatory at a certain level. They have to prioritize safety-related items, PPE, critical signage, specialized training materials, as absolutely non-negotiable line items.
They're all line in the sand.
Pretty much. They work closely with contractors and the procurement teams to mitigate risks early in the planning stages, and they monitor budgets religiously throughout the project. The key is viewing safety not as an expense, but as the fundamental foundation that ensures successful project completion without catastrophic financial or human loss.
Okay, so if compliance is the floor, strategy is maybe the ceiling. Let's shift gears a bit into the management and planning side. The high-level skills that truly set an experienced CSM apart. We know they need comprehensive technical knowledge, certifications, often years of experience. But what's the number one soft skill?
Based on the sources, it's strong communication. It sounds a bit generic, maybe.
Everyone says communication.
Right, but here it's specifically about cross-functional leadership. A CSM has to communicate effectively and clearly with the workers on the ground, explaining often complex protocols in a way that makes sense. But simultaneously, they must communicate persuasively with upper management, translating safety data, incident reports, risk assessments into financial and strategic terms they understand. They really have to bridge that gap between policy and practice, using strong problem-solving abilities too.
And their planning needs to be absolutely world-class, right? Especially when they're managing multiple large-scale projects at the same time. They need a really thorough understanding of project logistics, budgeting, scheduling, risk management.
Absolutely. The modern CSM, especially one managing multiple sites, simply can't be everywhere at once. It's impossible. So they rely heavily on technology to multiply their effectiveness.
What kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, tools of the trade often include risk assessment software used to identify potential hazards and figure out their likelihood before work starts. And project management software is key.
But not just for deadlines.
No, not just for tracking deadlines. It helps them strategically allocate their limited time to the projects that have the highest assessed risk load based on the data. Plus, communication tools like Slack or Teams to keep all the stakeholders coordinated.
Okay, but they constantly face that central tension, balancing safety with those tight project deadlines. How do they navigate that inevitable push from management or contractors to, speed things up, cut a corner here or there?
The strategic approach, the one the best CSMs take, is to bake safety into the project plan from day one. You create a comprehensive project-specific safety plan before things get rolling.
Proactive again.
Exactly. And the inspections start early and happen regularly. By identifying potential concerns before they become a major issue that could shut down the site, the CSM actually helps ensure safety becomes an accelerant for efficient completion, not a hindrance.
Interesting way to put it.
But the policy has to be unyielding. Safety must always be prioritized over speed. That's the only way to ensure efficient and safe project delivery in the long run.
Okay, what about new technology? If a new piece of safety tech emerges, say a drone for high-risk inspections, or maybe a smart hard hat sensor, how does a CSM decide whether to actually implement it and ask for the budget for it?
They seem to use a pretty methodical sort of three-step process. First, they'll research the product online, looking for genuine case studies, independent reviews, not just marketing fluff.
Do their homework.
Right. Second, they rely heavily on their professional network, reaching out to other CSMs, colleagues in the industry, asking for real-world feedback on adoption. Have you used this? Did it work? What were the pitfalls?
Right.
And third, they'll contact the vendor directly, but specifically asking for technical manuals, training materials, maybe even live demonstrations. This multi-layered vetting process helps ensure the new tool actually integrates effectively and provides a measurable benefit to their existing safety program before a single dollar is spent.
Makes sense. Okay, finally, how do you keep workers motivated and truly engaged in safety protocols? Especially when, as we said, they might feel pressured to make shortcuts just to hit a schedule.
Yeah. That's the culture piece. It seems to come back, again, to open communication. You have to actively solicit feedback and create an environment where workers feel genuinely comfortable voicing concerns or sharing ideas for improvement, crucially, without any fear of retribution.
Build that trust.
Exactly. And secondly, they use positive reinforcement. You actively reward the behavior you want to see repeated. Things like simple verbal praise, maybe gift cards, or even extra time off for exemplary safety practices. You're investing in the safety culture, not just checking off compliance boxes.
Right. So wrapping up this deep dive, the CSM role is this really fascinating intense blend, isn't it? It requires strict regulatory knowledge, like knowing OSHA inside and out, immediate crisis leadership skills for handling an injury response, strategic financial management to, say, defend the budget for quality PPE, and these sophisticated soft skills like empathy when dealing with a refusal, and really clear communication to foster trust across the entire site.
Definitely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the ultimate goal isn't just reacting to incidents, it's moving beyond that towards systemic safety improvement across the board.
Improving the whole system.
Exactly. We've seen how meticulously the CSM documents every conflict, every pattern of injury, every single investigation. This data is probably their most powerful tool.
So what's the final thought for our listener?
Well, the real challenge, the provocative question maybe, is this. When their documented evidence, that data they collect day in and day out, consistently proves the flaw isn't really with the individual worker's behavior, but it's actually in the company's system, or maybe it's resource allocation, how does that CSM turn that documented enforcement on the ground into mandated, potentially expensive change from executive leadership? That, I think, is the final and maybe toughest test of the construction safety management.